Her wheelchair died in the worst possible place, middle of campus, 7 minutes until class. And suddenly, the most untouchable guy at Hanford Prep was crouching beside her with an offer that would destroy both their worlds. "I can carry you," Kang Ji-woo said, like he hadn't just proposed the most dangerous thing possible. One piggyback ride, 2 million views, and Sage Rivers was about to learn that when you catch a prince's attention, you don't just get the fairy tale, you get everything that comes with it, and some of it wants to break you. The afternoon sun filtered through the cherry blossom trees lining Hanford Preparatory Academy's main courtyard, casting dappled shadows across the cobblestone pathways. Sage Rivers adjusted her backpack, balancing textbooks on her lap as she maneuvered her wheelchair toward the engineering building. She had exactly 7 minutes to get to Advanced Robotics, Professor Kim's class, where tardiness meant losing participation points. She couldn't afford to miss. The path curved slightly upward and Sage increased her pace, her arms working the wheels with practiced efficiency. She'd mapped every accessible route on this campus 2 years ago when she'd first arrived. Some girls knew where all the cute guys hung out. Sage knew which buildings had the smoothest ramps and which accessible entrances were actually blocked by permanently locked doors. She was halfway up the incline when she felt it, that sickening wobble in her left wheel that made her heart drop into her stomach. No, not today. Please, not today. But here's where it gets crazy. The wheel locked completely, jerking her chair to a harsh stop that sent her water bottle rolling across the path. Sage closed her eyes and took a deep breath, running through her options. She could call campus security, 20-minute wait minimum. She could text her roommate Maya, who was currently in a lab session across campus, or she could try to diagnose the problem herself, which would definitely make her late. "Hey, you need help?" The voice came from above and behind her, smooth and accented with that particular Korean lilt that half the girls on campus apparently found irresistible. Sage didn't need to turn around to know who it was. There was only one person at Hanford Prep whose mere presence could cause spontaneous whispers and iPhone cameras to materialize out of thin air. Kang Ji-woo, computer science major. Dean's List every semester. President of the Robotics Club. And according to the unofficial campus rankings that circulated every year, the most attractive guy at Hanford Prep for 3 consecutive years running. Sage had never spoken to him directly, though they shared the same engineering building. She'd seen him, of course. Kind of hard not to when he looked like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine even at 8 in the morning. But they existed in completely different social stratospheres. He was campus royalty. She was the girl who people were always surprised to learn had actual friends. "I'm fine," Sage called over her shoulder, already reaching down to inspect the wheel. "Just a mechanical issue." "Doesn't look fine." His footsteps approached, and suddenly he was crouching beside her chair, his face level with hers. Up close, she could see why people lost their composure around him. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that actually seemed intelligent rather than just pretty, and that slight furrow of concentration between his brows that suggested he was genuinely assessing the problem rather than just making polite conversation. "Your axle's bent. You're not going anywhere on this." Sage's jaw tightened. She knew that. What she didn't know was why Kang Ji-woo was still crouching there, looking at her wheel like it was an interesting engineering puzzle instead of walking away like most people would. "I'll figure it out," she said, pulling out her phone. "I just need to—" "Where are you headed?" "Engineering building. Room 403. Ji-woo checked his watch. One of those minimalist expensive ones that probably cost more than her entire semester's textbooks. "Professor Kim's robotics class. That starts in 5 minutes. "I know when my class starts," Sage said, hating the defensive edge in her voice. She wasn't trying to be rude, but something about his perfect face and perfect attendance record and perfect everything was making her feel more aware than usual of her broken wheelchair and impending tardiness. He stood up, and for a moment she thought he was leaving. Thank God. She could handle her own problems. She always had. But wait. Then he was moving around to face her directly, and he had that expression, determined, slightly stubborn, that she recognized from watching him debug code in the computer lab when everyone else had given up. "I can get you there on time," he said. Sage blinked. "What?" "I'm heading to the same building. Different class, but same direction." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was proposing something completely normal. "I can carry you." The courtyard seemed to go very quiet, or maybe that was just the sudden rushing in Sage's ears. Somewhere to her left, she heard someone's backpack hit the ground, followed by frantic whispering. "You want to carry me," Sage repeated slowly, making sure she'd heard correctly. "Piggyback," Jiwoo clarified as if that made it better. "Unless you have a better solution in the next 4 minutes." She stared at him. He stared back, completely unfazed, like he offered to carry people around campus every day. Like he hadn't just proposed something that would probably break the internet, or at least their campus's very active Instagram gossip accounts. "I don't even know you," Sage pointed out. "Kang Jiwoo, Jr., computer science and robotics double major. I built the automated coffee maker in the engineering lounge that everyone uses. I've debugged your code twice this semester when you left your laptop open in the library." He said all this in the same calm, factual tone. "Now you know me. 3 minutes." Sage's mind raced. She could be stubborn about this, insist on handling it herself, and miss class. Or she could accept help from a virtual stranger who happened to be the campus heartthrob and deal with whatever social fallout came from that. The decision was made easier by the fact that Professor Kim had explicitly stated that today's class included a critical demonstration for their final project groups. "Fine," Sage said, already regretting this. "But if you drop me, I'm reporting you to the dean." The corner of Jiwoo's mouth quirked up, barely a smile, but it transformed his entire face for just a second. "I won't drop you." He moved behind her chair, and Sage felt his hands on the armrests, careful and assured. "Put your arms around my neck," he instructed. "I'm going to lift on 3. 1, 2, 3. The world shifted. Suddenly she was weightless, her arms instinctively wrapping around his shoulders as he adjusted her position on his back. His hands came up under her thighs, securing her, and Sage became acutely aware of several things at once. How warm he was, how steady his breathing remained despite the added weight, and how her entire social life was about to get exponentially more complicated. "Comfortable?" he asked. "Define comfortable," Sage muttered, but she wasn't actually uncomfortable, just hyper-aware of everything. Jiwoo started walking, his stride smooth and measured. After a moment, Sage realized he'd adjusted his pace specifically to prevent jostling her. Around them, the courtyard had erupted in whispers. Phones were definitely out now. "You're going to be famous by lunch," Sage said quietly. "I'm already famous by campus standards. This doesn't change much." He didn't sound bothered by it. "You, on the other hand, are about to field a lot of questions." "Great," Sage sighed. "Just what I needed. To be known as the girl Kang Jiwoo carried across campus." "You could be known as the girl who aces Professor Kim's class instead," Jiwoo suggested. "That's more interesting anyway." Despite herself, Sage laughed. It came out slightly breathless, from the situation, definitely not from how solid and reliable his shoulders felt under her arms. Definitely not that. "You don't have to make me feel better about this," she said. "I'm not. I'm stating facts. Your project proposal last month was the best in the class. Everyone knows it. Professor Kim knows it. I know it." He turned a corner, heading toward the engineering building's main entrance. "Although I do think your actuator design could use some refinement, the torque calculation seemed off." Sage's embarrassment momentarily gave way to professional indignation. "My calculations were perfect. The issue was material constraints, not mathematical error. Material constraints that could be solved with alternative composite materials," Jiwoo countered, and suddenly they were debating engineering theory while he carried her up the building steps like it was the most natural thing in the world. They were still arguing when he pushed through the doors into the blessedly air-conditioned building. The lobby was crowded with students between classes, and Sage watched in real time as heads turned, conversations stopped, and at least 6 people pulled out their phones. Jiwoo ignored all of it. He navigated through the crowd with the same calm focus he'd shown in the courtyard, heading for the elevator bank. When a girl with perfect makeup and a sorority t-shirt stepped directly into his path, clearly planning to intercept, he simply said, "Excuse us, we're late for class," and walked around her without breaking stride. The elevator was empty when they entered, and Jiwoo carefully set Sage down on the built-in bench seat. He pressed the button for the 4th floor, then stepped back, shoving his hands into his pockets. "Thank you," Sage said, meaning it. "Seriously, you didn't have to do that." "I know." He was looking at her now with that same focused attention he'd given her wheelchair, like she was a problem worth solving, or maybe just worth noticing. "Your chair. What happened?" "Honestly? No idea. It was fine this morning. The axle thing must have been building for a while." Sage rubbed her forehead tiredly. "It's going to cost a fortune to fix. These specialized parts always do." "I could look at it," Jiwoo offered. "After class. I work part-time at a bike shop near campus. Wheelchairs aren't that different from bicycles, mechanically speaking. Same basic principles." Sage studied him, trying to figure out his angle. Guys who looked like Kang Jiwoo didn't just offer to fix wheelchairs for random classmates they'd never spoken to. There had to be something else going on. But when she searched his expression, all she found was genuine interest, and maybe a hint of that same engineering curiosity that drove her own late-night design sessions. "Why?" she asked directly. "Why not?" He tilted his head slightly. "You need help. I can provide help. It's not complicated." "Everything's complicated," Sage said softly, more to herself than to him. The elevator dinged. 4th floor. Jiwoo held the door for her as she wheeled out. He'd somehow retrieved her chair from the lobby, she realized. She hadn't even seen him do it. Room 403 was at the end of the hall. Through the door's window, Sage could see Professor Kim setting up the demonstration equipment. They'd made it with a minute to spare. "Thank you," she said again, looking up at Jiwoo. "Really, I owe you." "You don't owe me anything." He stepped back, already turning toward his own classroom down the hall. Then he paused, looking back over his shoulder. "But I will take you up on that debate about actuator designs. Your approach was interesting, even if it was wrong." "It wasn't wrong," Sage called after him, trying not to smile. "Prove it," he challenged. And then he was gone, disappearing into a classroom full of computer science students who definitely hadn't just caused the biggest campus gossip moment of the semester. Sage took a deep breath and wheeled into Professor Kim's classroom. Every single head turned to look at her. Her project partner Marcus was grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Girl," he whispered as she settled into her usual spot beside him. "Did Kang Jiwoo just carry you into the building?" "Not one word," Sage hissed back. "My phone has been blowing up for the last 5 minutes. There are already 3 different Instagram posts. Someone made a TikTok. A TikTok." Sage. "Marcus, I swear." "Good afternoon, class," Professor Kim called out, and mercifully, everyone's attention shifted forward. But Sage could feel the weight of curious stares, the whispered questions that would follow her all day. She pulled out her laptop and tried to focus on the lecture, but her mind kept drifting back to the courtyard, to strong shoulders and calm hands, to the way Jiwoo had carried her like she weighed nothing, like it mattered that she made it to class on time, like she was worth the inevitable gossip storm he'd just triggered. "This is just going to blow over," she told herself firmly. "Tomorrow everyone will forget about it." It was one moment. One weird, awkward, unexpectedly kind moment. That's all. But deep down, in that place where intuition lived before logic could argue it away, Sage knew better. Some moments changed things, and the feeling of flying through campus on Kang Ji-woo's back, debating engineering theory while the world watched, that felt a lot like the beginning of something she hadn't been prepared for. Something that might be wonderful or terrifying, or possibly both at once. By the time class ended, Sage's phone had 17 text messages, 5 Instagram notifications, and 2 missed calls from her roommate. She ignored all of it, focusing instead on gathering her notes and trying to plan the most strategic route to her next class that would avoid maximum human contact. "Hey, Sage." Professor Kim's voice stopped her at the door. The older woman was smiling kindly. "Everything all right with your chair?" "It will be," Sage said, though she had no idea if that was true. "Good. I wanted to mention, your project group has been assigned to the robotics lab for Thursday evenings this semester. I know accessibility can be an issue in some of our older buildings, but that lab was recently renovated. Everything should be up to code." It was a small thing, but it mattered. Professor Kim was one of the few instructors who thought about these details without being asked. "Thank you, Professor. That's really helpful." "Also," Professor Kim added, her smile turning slightly knowing, "I saw you arrive with Ji-woo. He's a good student. Brilliant, actually, though. Sometimes too focused on perfection. You two would make an interesting project team if you ever wanted to collaborate." Sage felt heat creep up her neck. "Oh, we're not... I mean, that was just a thought," Professor Kim said mildly. "Have a good afternoon, Sage." The hallway outside was thankfully less crowded now, most students having dispersed to their next classes. Sage made it to the elevator without incident, then down to the first floor where she'd left her broken wheelchair temporarily parked by the security desk. She was examining the bent axle, trying to determine if it was salvageable or completely shot, when a shadow fell across her. "It's definitely bent," Ji-woo's voice came from above her. "But I think it can be straightened. The real question is whether the bearing housing is cracked. If it is, you'll need a full replacement." Sage looked up. He'd changed out of his backpack, and there was a smudge of what looked like solder on his sleeve. "Don't you have class?" "Just finished. I've got 2 hours before my next one." He crouched down again, this time pulling a small multi-tool from his pocket and carefully examining the wheel assembly. "Do you have time to wheel over to the bike shop? It's only 3 blocks. I can help you navigate." Every rational part of Sage's brain was screaming at her to politely decline. She'd already been the center of enough attention for one day, adding, had a private repair session with Kang Ji-woo at a bike shop. To the gossip mill seemed like a terrible idea. But the logical part of her brain, the part that had learned through years of experience that pride was a luxury she couldn't always afford, looked at her broken wheel and did the math. Campus repair services were expensive and slow. The bike shop would be cheaper and faster. And Ji-woo clearly knew what he was doing. 3 blocks? She confirmed. 3.5 if we take the accessible route. There's a curb cut issue on the direct path. The fact that he already knew about the curb cuts did something strange to Sage's chest, like a small crack appearing in a wall she'd carefully built. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Yeah, let's do it." "Great." Ji-woo stood, pocketing his multi-tool. "I'll push. That wheel's not going to cooperate if you try to use it." Before Sage could protest, he was behind her chair, hands on the push handles. His grip was confident but not presumptuous, and when he started moving, his pace was smooth and measured, the same as when he'd carried her. They exited the building into bright afternoon sunshine. The campus was alive with students moving between classes, groups clustered on the lawn, a frisbee game in progress near the quad. And everywhere they went, conversations paused, heads turned, phones appeared. The bike shop appeared on their right, a narrow storefront with Velocity Cycles painted in cheerful yellow letters across the window. "Ji-woo." A middle-aged man emerged from the back, wiping grease from his hands. He had kind eyes and calluses that spoke of decades of mechanical work. Didn't expect you until later. Emergency repair situation, Jiwoo explained, gesturing to Sage's chair. Mr. Park, this is Sage Rivers. We go to school together. Sage, this is Mr. Park. He owns the shop and taught me everything I know about wheel mechanics. Ah, a classmate. Mr. Park's smile widened. He switched smoothly to English with a thick but understandable accent. Jiwoo is too modest. He teaches me things now. Very smart boy. He moved to examine the wheelchair. Let's see what we have here. For the next 20 minutes, Sage watched as Mr. Park and Jiwoo worked together, their hands moving with the synchronized efficiency of longtime collaborators. They spoke partly in Korean, partly in English, their conversation flowing between languages as naturally as breathing. Jiwoo had been right about the bearing housing. It was cracked. But Mr. Park had a compatible replacement part, from a mountain bike that he modified on the spot. The bent axle was heated, carefully straightened and reinforced. Throughout the process, both men consulted Sage, explaining their choices, asking about her daily use patterns, making sure the repair would hold up to her actual life rather than some theoretical ideal. This should be stronger than before, Mr. Park finally announced, spinning the wheel to demonstrate its smooth rotation. But you bring back if any problems, yes? No charge for adjustments. How much do I owe you? Sage asked, already mentally calculating which textbooks she could buy used to offset the cost. Mr. Park waved dismissively. Friend of Jiwoo. No charge. First repair is free. Mr. Park, I can't. Yes, you can, Jiwoo said firmly. He does this for all the students I bring in. It's his policy, not charity. Is a good policy, Mr. Park agreed, grinning. Builds customer loyalty. You come back when you need tune-up, yes? Then I charge you. He winked to show he was mostly joking. Sage felt something uncomfortable and warm tangling in her chest. Gratitude, yes, but also something more complex. The casual kindness of it all. The way these two men had simply seen a problem and solved it. No dramatic gestures, no expectation of effusive thanks, just competent hands and generous hearts. Thank you, she said, meeting Mr. Park's eyes, then Jiwoo's. Both of you. Really, you didn't have to do this. Of course we did, Mr. Park said, already turning back to his counter. Is what people do. Help each other. Maybe someday you help someone else, yes? This is how world works. Jiwoo held the door for her as they exited back into the afternoon sun. Sage tested the wheel. It rolled perfectly, smooth and true. Better than it had been in months, honestly. Your boss is a good person, she said. He is. Jiwoo fell into step beside her as she wheeled down the sidewalk. His daughter is in a wheelchair too. Birth, injury. He knows what it's like when equipment fails at the worst possible moment. They walked in companionable silence for a block. Around them, the college town hummed with activity. Coffee shops and bookstores, students shouting greetings across the street, the distant sound of someone practicing guitar in an upstairs apartment. Can I ask you something? Jiwoo said suddenly. Sure. Why did you seem surprised when I offered to help? Sage considered lying, giving some easy deflection. But something about Jiwoo's directness seemed to demand honesty in return. Because people usually don't, she said simply. Or they do. But it's performative. Like they want credit for being nice to the disabled girl. Or they're weird about it. Overly careful. Treating me like I'm fragile. She paused. You weren't either of those things. You just helped. Like it was normal. It is normal, Jiwoo said. You needed help. I could provide it. That's not complicated. You keep saying that it's not complicated. Sage looked up at him. But it kind of is, for most people. He was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. They were approaching campus again, the familiar Gothic architecture coming into view. Maybe it's complicated because people make it complicated, he finally said. They worry about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. They get caught up in their own discomfort instead of just paying attention to what's actually needed. He glanced at her. I don't really do that. The overthinking thing. My friends say I'm too direct sometimes. Lacking social graces? Sage laughed. Your friends clearly haven't seen the Campus Confessions Instagram account. You have plenty of grace. Trust me. That's not grace. That's just existing while Korean in America. His tone was dry, slightly bitter. People project whatever they want onto you. It has nothing to do with who you actually are. There was a weight to those words that spoke of experience. Sage recognized it, that particular exhaustion that came from being constantly perceived through other people's lenses rather than your own reality. Yeah, she said softly. I know that feeling. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. The kind that comes from walking through the world under the weight of other people's assumptions and learning to carry yourself anyway. They reached the campus edge. Ji-woo checked his watch. I should get to my next class, but... He hesitated, which seemed uncharacteristic. Would you want to grab food after? There's a good noodle place off campus. They have accessible seating. Sage's heart did something complicated in her chest. This was entering different territory. This was moving beyond emergency assistance into something that looked suspiciously like... What? A date? Hanging out? She wasn't even sure what to call it. Why? She asked, echoing her earlier question. Ji-woo's smile was slight but genuine. Because I'm hungry. Because you probably are too after all this. And because I still want to hear you defend those actuator calculations. He paused. Also because I'd like to. Just, generally. Is that enough reason? Be smart, Sage's cautious brain warned. This is Kang Ji-woo. He has a fan club. Multiple fan clubs. Getting involved with him is asking for drama you don't need. 6. I'll meet you at the engineering building entrance. Okay, Sage agreed, before her sensible side could intervene. But I'm buying my own food. No arguments. Wouldn't dream of it. Ji-woo's smile widened fractionally. See you at 6, Sage Rivers. He walked away then, backpack slung over one shoulder, hands in pockets, completely unaware, or maybe just unconcerned. But she was going to show up at 6 anyway. If you're already hooked on where this is going, make sure you like and subscribe, because things are about to get a lot more complicated. Sage is about to discover that when you catch the attention of campus royalty, you don't just get the prince. You get his entire world. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Sage spent the 3 hours between Ji-woo's invitation and their actual meeting time doing what any rational person would do. By 5:55 p.m., she was parked outside the engineering building entrance, mentally rehearsing casual conversation topics that didn't involve wheelchairs, gossip, or the fact that her hands had been sweaty for the last 20 minutes. Ji-woo appeared at exactly 6 o'clock, because apparently even his punctuality was perfect. He'd changed too. Ready? He asked, and Sage nodded, not trusting her voice. The noodle place turned out to be a small Korean restaurant tucked between a laundromat and a vintage bookshop. The exterior was unassuming, but the moment they entered, Sage was enveloped by warmth and the incredible smell of garlic, sesame oil, and something savory that made her stomach growl audibly. Ajuma, Ji-woo called out, and an older woman emerged from the kitchen, her face lighting up when she saw him. They exchanged rapid Korean, the woman laughing and swatting at Ji-woo's arm affectionately. Then her sharp eyes landed on Sage, and her expression transformed into something calculating and pleased. More Korean. Ji-woo responded with something that made the woman laugh again, then shoo them toward a table in the corner. One, Sage noticed, that had clearly been chosen for its wheelchair accessibility, with enough space to pull up comfortably, without blocking the aisle. What did she say? Sage asked once they were settled. Ji-woo had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. She asked if you were my girlfriend. I told her we just met today. And that made her laugh? She said timing doesn't matter when it's the right person. He was studying the menu like it contained classified information. What's good here? She asked, changing the subject to safer ground. Everything. But the jjajangmyeon is incredible. The kimchi jjigae if you want something spicy. The bulgogi if you want something sweet. He glanced up. Are you vegetarian? Allergies? None. I eat everything. We should order family style. Share everything. Unless that's weird? It's not weird, Sage said, meaning it. She'd grown up in a house where shared meals were sacred, where her Chinese grandmother had taught her that food was love made visible. Jiwoo ordered in Korean, a lot of Korean, based on how long he spoke. When the Ajumma left, he caught Sage's questioning look. I may have ordered too much, he admitted, but you can't really experience Korean food without trying multiple dishes, and she's going to send out extra banchan anyway, because she's already adopted you. Adopted me? She adopts every person I bring here. It's her thing. He paused. Though, full disclosure, you're the first girl I've brought here. Sage's heart did that complicated thing again. Why? Why haven't I brought other girls, or why am I telling you? Both. I haven't brought other girls because the ones who usually express interest aren't actually interested in me, he said finally. They're interested in the idea of me, the version that exists in their heads. And I'm not really interested in performing that version for anyone. It was possibly the most honest thing anyone had ever said to her on what might or might not be a date. And you're telling me because? Because you don't seem interested in that version. You're just... He gestured vaguely. Here. Actually here. Does that make sense? It did. It made almost too much sense. Before Sage could respond, the Ajumma returned with a tray practically overflowing with small dishes. Banchan? Jiwoo had called them kimchi, pickled radish, seasoned spinach, fish cakes, and at least 6 other things Sage couldn't immediately identify. Then came the main dishes, the jjajangmyeon in its black bean sauce glory, a sizzling stone bowl of kimchi jjigae, perfectly grilled bulgogi, and what looked like seafood pancakes. I'm going to roll out of here, Sage said, staring at the spread. Good. Ajumma will be pleased. Jiwoo picked up his chopsticks. Try the kimchi first. It's homemade. Nothing else will taste right after it. They fell into eating, and Sage discovered that Jiwoo had been absolutely right about everything. The food was incredible. The kimchi was perfect, sour and spicy and complex. The jjajangmyeon was rich and comforting. The jjigae was spicy enough to make her reach for water, but not so much that she wanted to stop eating it. Between bites, they talked. Really talked. Not small talk or careful social positioning, but actual conversation. Jiwoo told her about growing up in Seoul until he was 12, then moving to California when his father's tech company expanded. About feeling caught between cultures, never quite Korean enough for Korea, never quite American enough for America. About discovering that code was a language that didn't care about your accent or your face. Sage told him about growing up in Oakland, about her parents who'd met in graduate school, her dad Chinese American, her mom Black American, and how she'd always existed in hyphenated spaces. About the car accident when she was 14 that had left her paraplegic, and the year of physical therapy and anger and eventually acceptance that followed. About discovering that engineering gave her control in a world that often felt designed to exclude her. They finished eating while the restaurant filled up around them with other students, young couples, families with small children. The Ajumma checked on them twice, each time leaving with an approving nod, and more banchan that Sage was absolutely too full to eat, but somehow kept nibbling on anyway. When they finally finished, Sage insisting on paying for her half, despite Jiwoo's protests, the sun had set, and the college town streets were lit with string lights and neon signs. The evening air was cool, perfect for California in October. Want to walk for a bit? Jiwoo asked. There's a bookstore down the street that stays open late. They have a good architecture section if you ever need project inspiration. They should go back to campus. Sage had homework. Jiwoo probably had homework. They'd already spent 3 hours together, which was definitely more than a casual, "Thanks for fixing my wheelchair" required. But Sage found she didn't want the evening to end yet. "Sure," she said. "Lead the way." The bookstore was exactly the kind of place Sage loved, crammed floor to ceiling with books, narrow aisles that somehow didn't feel claustrophobic, the smell of paper and coffee and endless possibility. Jiwoo navigated them to the technical section in the back, where architecture books sat alongside engineering texts and design theory. "This is dangerous," Sage said, already pulling out a book on biomimetic design. "I'm going to spend all my textbook money here." "The library has a decent engineering collection," Jiwoo pointed out, browsing a shelf on structural systems. "Though their robotics section could use updating." "Everything could use updating. We're studying on equipment from 2019. Don't remind me, the servo motors in the lab are practically antiques." He pulled out a book, flipped through it, made a considering sound. "Although I've been working on a side project, designing a modular wheelchair attachment system that could adapt to different activities, sports, rough terrain, water resistance. The current market options are all specialized and expensive. There should be a universal solution." Sage lowered her book, staring at him. "You're designing adaptive wheelchair equipment? As a side project?" "It's preliminary, just concept sketches mostly. The engineering is complicated. Weight distribution, material stress, user safety variables." He was still looking at his book, not meeting her eyes. "I haven't told anyone about it yet. It might not go anywhere." "Jiwoo." Sage waited until he looked at her. "That's incredible. Do you have any idea how much adaptive equipment costs? And how rarely it actually works the way it's supposed to? That's why I'm working on it. The current market is failing users." Now he did meet her gaze, and there was intensity there, passion that transformed his usually calm expression. "Everyone should have equipment that works for their actual life, not some theoretical ideal life that equipment designers imagine." This boy, this brilliant, kind, quietly passionate boy, who apparently spent his free time trying to solve problems that most people never even noticed. Sage was in so much trouble. "Would you want feedback?" she asked. "On the designs? I've been living with adaptive equipment for 8 years. I have opinions." Jiwoo's entire face changed, lit up in a way she hadn't seen before. "Really? You'd be willing to consult?" "Consult makes it sound formal. I'd just be telling you what works and what doesn't. What actually matters versus what able-bodied engineers think matters. That would be..." Jiwoo caught himself, took a breath. When he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled, but Sage could hear the excitement underneath. "That would be incredibly helpful. Thank you." They spent another hour in the bookstore, talking about design theory and user experience, and the gap between engineering elegance and practical function. Jiwoo showed her sketches on his phone, preliminary drawings that were already more thoughtful than most commercial products Sage had seen. She pointed out potential issues, suggested modifications, told him about the real-world problems that catalogs never mentioned. It was the best conversation Sage had had in months, maybe years, the kind where time disappeared and the rest of the world faded out, and all that existed was ideas bouncing between two minds that understood each other. When they finally left the bookstore, Sage buying the biomimetic design book despite her budget, Jiwoo purchasing 3 technical texts that he claimed he might need eventually, the streets had quieted. The walk back to campus felt different than the walk out. More comfortable, like they'd crossed some invisible line from strangers to something else. Not quite friends, not quite more than friends. Something still being defined. "Today was unexpected," Sage said as they approached the campus gates. Good unexpected or bad unexpected? Good, definitely good. She paused, then decided on honesty. Also kind of terrifying. Jiwoo stopped walking. They were under a streetlight, and in its glow, Sage could see the question in his expression. Why terrifying? He asked. Because you're Kang Jiwoo, and half the campus is probably already shipping us based on one piggyback ride. Because I don't know how to navigate this. Whatever this is. Because you make me laugh, and think, and feel like maybe I could be brave enough to want something more than just getting through each day. But what Sage said was, because I haven't done this in a while. The making friends thing, I'm good at being alone, I'm good at managing. But letting people in? That's harder. Jiwoo nodded slowly, like he understood exactly what she meant. For what it's worth, I'm not great at the friend thing either. Most people want something from me, some version of me that fits their expectations. He met her eyes. You don't seem to want that. I don't even know what that version is. I just know you fixed my wheelchair and argued with me about engineering, and apparently spend your free time trying to make the world more accessible. That's the version I know. That's the version I actually am, Jiwoo said quietly. Most days, anyway. They stood there for a moment, the campus quiet behind them, the weight of something unnamed hanging in the air between them. I should get back, Sage finally said. I have a problem set due tomorrow that I haven't started. I'll walk you to your dorm. You don't have to. I know. Jiwoo was already moving, falling into step beside her. But I'm going to anyway. They crossed campus in comfortable silence. When they reached Sage's dorm, one of the newer buildings with actual accessibility features, Jiwoo held the door for her, then paused. Can I have your number? He asked. For the wheelchair project, and maybe for other things. If you want. Sage pulled out her phone, trying to ignore the way her hands were shaking slightly. They exchanged numbers, and then Jiwoo was stepping back, hands in his pockets again. Today was good, he said. Unexpected, but good. Same, Sage agreed. See you in class? See you in class. He walked away, and Sage watched him go, feeling like her entire world had tilted sideways in the span of 12 hours. She wheeled into the dorm lobby, rode the elevator to her floor, and made it all the way to her door before her phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Jiwoo. Just making sure you got home safe. Sage saved his contact, then typed back. Sage. I got home safe. Thank you for everything today. Jiwoo. Thank you for letting me help, and for the design feedback, and for dinner. Sage. You're welcome. For all of it. She paused, then added, Sage. I'm glad you stopped in the courtyard today. The response came quickly. Jiwoo. Me too. Then, a moment later. Jiwoo. Sleep well, Sage Rivers. Sage. You too, Kang Jiwoo. Everyone says social media attention is harmless. They're wrong. Here's what nobody tells you about going viral. By Wednesday morning, Sage's life had become decidedly more complicated. The TikTok had gone viral. Actually viral. Not just campus viral. Over 2 million views. Someone had set the piggyback ride footage to a romantic K-drama soundtrack. The comment section was a mix of, "This is the cutest thing I've ever seen," and "Who is she and why is she living my dream?" and "Representation we didn't know we needed." Campus Confessions had posted about them 4 times. Yik Yak was a nightmare Sage refused to read, per Maya's strong recommendation. And somehow, someone had started a Jjigae shipping account on Instagram that already had 3,000 followers. This is insane, Sage said, staring at Maya's phone over breakfast in their dorm kitchenette. We literally just met on Monday. The internet doesn't care about timelines, they care about aesthetics. And you two have aesthetics. Maya, ever practical, was eating cereal while scrolling through the comments. Look, most of it is positive. People think it's sweet. Some of it is positive, Sage corrected, having made the mistake of looking earlier. Some of it is less positive. But here's where it gets dark. There had been comments, pointed ones, about her wheelchair, about whether she was good enough for someone like Jiwoo, about motivations and pity, and whether this was some elaborate stunt for social media clout. Most of it could be ignored. Most of it was just noise from people who didn't know them, didn't matter. But some comments stuck, found the soft spaces, reminded Sage why she usually kept her walls up. Her phone buzzed. Jiwoo, for the 8th time that week. Jiwoo. You okay? I saw some of the comments. Sage. I'm fine, just noise. Jiwoo. It's not okay. Want me to say something publicly? Sage. And make it worse? No. People will move on to the next thing soon enough. Jiwoo. If you're sure, but I'm here if you need anything. Sage smiled despite herself. They'd been texting constantly since Monday, sharing memes, debating engineering theories, sending each other photos of terrible campus accessibility fails. It felt easy, natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. The problem was that the rest of campus had noticed too. She'd been approached by 5 different people asking if she and Jiwoo were dating. Professor Kim had given her a knowing look in class. And yesterday, a girl from her design theory seminar had literally asked for an autograph, for when you're famous. You should talk to him, Maya said, practical as always. Figure out what this is before everyone else defines it for you. We're just friends. New friends. Friends who text until 2 a.m. about robotics? It's engineering discussion. Friends who look at each other like that? Like what? Maya just gave her a look. The look that said, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Stop playing dumb. Sage's phone buzzed again. Jiwoo. Free after your 3 p.m. class? Want to grab coffee and work on that actuator debate? I have new calculations. Sage. You made new calculations just to prove me wrong? Jiwoo. I made new calculations to prove I was right. There's a difference. Sage. This is going to be insufferable, isn't it? Jiwoo. Absolutely. See you at 4? Sage. See you at 4. Maya was still giving her that look. Shut up, Sage said. I didn't say anything. You were thinking it very loudly. The coffee shop Jiwoo had chosen was off campus, blissfully free of other Hanford Prep students. They claimed a corner table and Jiwoo immediately pulled out his laptop, launching into an explanation of his revised torque calculations that was equal parts brilliant and completely missing her original point. You're still assuming ideal conditions, Sage argued, pulling up her own design files. Real-world materials don't behave like your simulation suggests. There's always variance. Which is why you account for tolerance ranges. Tolerance ranges that you've underestimated based on these material stress values. They argued for 40 minutes straight, complete with sketch diagrams on napkins and increasingly animated hand gestures. Other coffee shop patrons glanced over occasionally, probably wondering what kind of intense discussion required this much graph paper. Finally, Jiwoo leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. Okay, you might have a point. I have several points. You have one point, the material variance thing. The rest of your argument is built on faulty assumptions about load distribution. My assumptions are not faulty. Your model is oversimplified. Children, said a voice above them, amused and warm. They both looked up to find Professor Kim standing there with a coffee cup, smiling at them. Should I be concerned that you're having this argument outside of class time? Professor, Sage felt her face heat. We were just debating actuator efficiency metrics, Jiwoo finished, completely unbothered. Sage thinks my simulations don't account for real-world material variance. She's partially correct, but refuses to acknowledge the flaws in her own analysis. Professor Kim's smile widened. Well, I'm glad to see my students taking their coursework so seriously, though perhaps you should collaborate instead of competing? I suspect you'd produce something interesting together. She left them with that thought, and Sage and Jiwoo sat in silence for a moment. She's not wrong, Jiwoo said eventually. We could combine approaches, your real-world experience with my simulation capability. Is this your way of admitting I was right? This is my way of suggesting a partnership that benefits both of us. So, yes, I was right. Jiwoo's lips quirked. You were not wrong about certain aspects of material behavior in non-ideal conditions. I'll take it. Sage grinned, feeling something warm settle in her chest. This, the banter, the intellectual challenge, the easy back and forth, this was what she'd been missing. Not just in potential romantic relationships, but in friendship. In connection. They spent another hour at the coffee shop, this time actually collaborating instead of arguing. Jiwoo's models were elegant and sophisticated. Sage's practical modifications made them functional. Together, they created something better than either could have managed alone. We should present this, Jiwoo said, studying their combined work. As a project proposal. Professor Kim would definitely approve it for the spring engineering showcase. You want to work on a project together? For a whole semester? Why not? We work well together. Despite your stubbornness. My stubbornness? You literally made new calculations just to win an argument. That's dedication, not stubbornness. Sage laughed and Jiwoo smiled. A real smile this time, not the slight quirk, but an actual expression of joy that transformed his entire face. What? He asked, catching her looking. Nothing. Just, you should smile more, it's good. Something shifted in Jiwoo's expression, not the smile exactly, but something softer. Something that made Sage's heart do that complicated fluttering thing it had been doing increasingly often. You make me smile, he said simply. Most people don't. And then everything changed. Before Sage could figure out how to respond to that, how to respond to the quiet intensity in his voice, the way he was looking at her like she was a solution to an equation he'd been trying to solve, her phone rang. Maya. Emergency tone. Sorry, Sage answered. What's wrong? Where are you? Maya's voice was tight, worried. Coffee shop on Maple Street. Why? Don't come back to campus yet. Something's happening. Someone posted your contact info on Yik Yak. You're getting texts. Sage's stomach dropped. What kind of texts? The bad kind. I've been screening them, but it's a lot, Sage. Someone's coordinating harassment. Jiwoo had gone very still, his expression hardening. When Sage lowered her phone, he asked, What happened? She told him. Watched his jaw tighten, his hands curl into fists on the table. Give me your phone, he said quietly. Jiwoo. Please. Something in his tone made her hand it over. He scrolled through her messages, and Sage watched his expression shudder completely, becoming cold and remote in a way she'd never seen before. This is targeted, he said flatly. Someone's orchestrating this. Multiple accounts, coordinated timing. He looked up at her. Do you know who might want to do this? Sage thought about the comments she'd ignored, the veiled hostility from some corners of campus, the way certain people looked at her and Jiwoo in the hallways. Could be anyone, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Could be someone who thinks I don't deserve your attention. Could be someone who just thinks harassing the disabled girl is fun. Does it matter? Yes. Jiwoo's voice was steel. It matters because they're going to stop. Now. Here's what happened when someone tried to destroy what we were building. He pulled out his own phone, typing rapidly. Within seconds, his phone was ringing. He answered in Korean, his voice sharp and commanding. Sage caught names. Friends. Probably. People he was calling in. What are you doing? She asked when he hung up. Fixing this. My friends have connections. Computer science students who can trace IP addresses, report accounts, coordinate with campus security. He was still typing. This kind of harassment violates university policy. We have grounds for official complaints. Jiwoo, you don't have to. Yes, I do. He looked up, and his eyes were fierce. Nobody gets to treat you like this. Nobody gets to make you feel unsafe. I don't care who they are or what they think they're accomplishing. Sage felt something crack open in her chest. Not fear this time, but something else. Something that felt like being seen, like being protected. Not because she was weak or needed saving, but because someone had decided she deserved to be safe. Period. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me. This is what you do for people you... Jiwoo stopped, seemed to recalibrate. For people who matter. You matter. The weight of those words sat between them. You matter. Not to the campus, not to the social media observers. To him. Specifically and particularly to him. Sage's phone buzzed. A new message, but this time from a campus number. Campus security. We've been alerted to a harassment situation involving your contact information. We're investigating and will be reaching out shortly. Your information has been flagged for protection. How did you... Sage started. My roommate's dad is on the board of trustees. One phone call. Jiwoo said it casually, like mobilizing university resources was no big deal. The accounts will be shut down within the hour. Anyone who continues will face disciplinary action. You just... solved it. In 10 minutes. I made phone calls. Other people are doing the actual solving. But there was satisfaction in his expression. The particular satisfaction of seeing a problem and systematically dismantling it. They sat there while Jiwoo's network did its work. True to his word, within an hour, the harassing messages stopped. Yik-yak posts were taken down. Campus security had identified 3 main instigators, all facing disciplinary hearings. I should get you back to campus, Jiwoo said eventually. It's getting late. They walked through the darkening streets, and Sage found herself thinking about protection. Not the condescending kind, not the fragile person needs defending kind, but the fierce, practical kind. The kind that said, I see you as complete and capable, and also, I will burn down the world for you if necessary. Can I ask you something? She said as they approached campus. Always? Why me? Really? You could have kept walking on Monday. You could have let someone else help. You could have stayed in your own world with your own friends and your own drama-free life. She paused. So why me? Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful, like he was choosing each word, deliberately. Here's what nobody tells you about being visible. Do you know what it's like to be constantly performing? To have people project their expectations onto you, and then be disappointed when you don't match their fantasy? He glanced at her. You don't do that. From the first moment, you just saw me. Not Kang Jiwoo, the campus celebrity, or the robotics genius, or the attractive Korean guy. Just me, the person who stops to fix wheelchairs and argues about engineering and exists beyond other people's projections. That's just treating you like a human being. Exactly. And you have no idea how rare that is. He stopped walking, turning to face her fully. You're brilliant, and funny, and real. You don't try to be anything other than exactly who you are. And when I'm around you, I don't have to try either. I can just exist as myself. Do you know how valuable that is? Sage's throat felt tight. I'm starting to understand. They stood there on the edge of campus, the night settling around them, the weight of everything unsaid hanging in the air between them. Jiwoo stepped closer, not crowding her space but closing the distance enough that she had to tilt her head up slightly to maintain eye contact. I like you, he said simply. Not as a project or a good deed or a social statement, as a person, as Sage. I like how your mind works and how you challenge me and how you make everything feel more real. He paused. I know it's only been a few days. I know the timing is weird and the circumstances are complicated. but I wanted you to know. So there's no ambiguity. Sage's heart was doing acrobatics. That's very direct. I told you I'm not good at social graces. No, it's good. I like direct. She took a breath. I like you too. Which is terrifying because I'm not great at this. The feelings thing. The letting people close thing. But you make it seem less scary. Like, maybe I could try. We could try together, Jiwoo offered. Figure it out as we go. No pressure. No performance. Just seeing what happens. With the whole campus watching? We could give them a good show, Jiwoo said, and there was mischief in his expression now. Or we could ignore them completely and just live our lives. Your choice. Sage found herself smiling despite everything, the harassment, the scrutiny, the complicated reality of catching feelings for someone in the most public way possible. I vote for living our lives, she said. The campus can deal. Good answer. Jiwoo's hand found hers, careful and questioning. When she didn't pull away, his fingers interlaced with hers, warm and solid. Come on, let's get you home. We have actuator designs to finish and a campus to ignore. They walked back to her dorm hand in hand. And if people stared? If phones appeared? If tomorrow brought new gossip and new complications? Well, they'd deal with that tomorrow. Tonight was just about two people who'd found something unexpected and decided it was worth keeping. But that's not where the story ends. 6 weeks later, everything they'd built was about to be tested in a way neither of them saw coming. Stay with me. Remember that viral moment from the beginning? Here's what happened after the cameras stopped watching. The Hanford Prep Engineering Showcase was packed. Students, professors, parents, and industry professionals crowded around display tables, examining projects and asking questions. Somewhere near the front, a group was demonstrating a solar-powered drone. In the corner, someone had built a water filtration system. And at table 17, Sage and Jiwoo were presenting their collaborative actuator system, the one they'd argued about in that coffee shop 6 weeks ago, then spent countless hours refining together. The key innovation, Jiwoo was explaining to a woman from Boeing's engineering division, is the adaptive load distribution. Traditional systems assume static conditions. Our design accounts for real-world variants, which we validated through extensive user testing, Sage added, pulling up their data. Not theoretical users, actual people with actual mobility needs. The performance improvement is significant. The Boeing engineer asked increasingly technical questions, and Sage and Jiwoo fielded them in the easy back and forth they'd developed over weeks of working together. Their presentation was polished, their data solid, their system genuinely innovative. When the engineer finally moved on with a business card and a suggestion to stay in touch, they both exhaled. That went well, Sage said. That went extremely well. She basically offered us internship positions. She basically offered you an internship. I'm still an underclassman. She was looking at your data analysis the whole time. Trust me, that offer was for both of us. Maya appeared with 2 bottles of water and a grin. You two are absolutely crushing this. Professor Kim keeps sending people over. I think you might actually win. We're not competing, Sage protested. Everyone's competing, Maya corrected. You're just competing and winning. Own it. She disappeared back into the crowd, and Jiwoo handed Sage one of the water bottles. She's not wrong, he said. We did good work. We did good work, Sage agreed. Equal emphasis on the we. Equal emphasis, Jiwoo confirmed. His hand found hers under the table, that casual intimacy they'd developed over weeks of late-night study sessions and coffee shop debates, and learning to exist in each other's spaces. The showcase continued around them. People came and went, asking questions, offering praise, taking photos of their display. Through it all, Sage felt something settle in her chest. Pride, yes. Accomplishment, definitely. But also something deeper. Belonging. Not just to Jiwoo, though that was part of it, but to this, The engineering community, the creative process, the collaboration that pushed both of them to be better than they could be alone. "Hey," Jiwoo said quietly, squeezing her hand. "You okay?" "Yeah." Sage smiled up at him. "Really okay. This is good. We're good." "We are," Jiwoo agreed. And then, because they were Jiwoo and Sage and direct honesty was kind of their thing. "I'm glad you broke your wheelchair that day. I'm glad you stopped to help. I'm glad you let me." Sage laughed. "We're getting sappy." "Little bit. Should we stop?" "Probably not." Professor Kim materialized beside their table looking pleased. "Congratulations, you two. The judges were very impressed. I think you have a real shot at first place." "Thank you, Professor," they said in unison. When she left, Jiwoo looked at Sage. "Want to celebrate after this? Win or lose?" "Definitely. Where?" "There's a Korean barbecue place that just opened. Supposed to be excellent. Full accessibility features. I checked." "You checked the accessibility features?" "Of course I checked. Why wouldn't I check?" And there it was. The casual consideration, the automatic inclusion, the way Jiwoo had simply folded Sage's needs into his planning without making it a big deal or expecting praise for basic human decency. "Korean barbecue sounds perfect," Sage said, meaning it. The showcase wound down. They didn't win first place. That went to the solar drone team. But they took second, along with a special commendation for innovative approach to universal design principles. More importantly, they had 3 industry contacts, Professor Kim's enthusiastic endorsement for summer research positions, and the solid foundation of a partnership that worked. As they packed up their display, Sage's phone buzzed. The shipping account, Jiga, had posted a photo from the showcase with the caption, "When your OTP is also academic goals." "We have a ship name," Sage showed Jiwoo. "We've had a ship name for 6 weeks." "Yes, but they're calling us academic goals now. That's an upgrade from just being cute." "We're definitely academic goals. Look at this commendation." Jiwoo waved the certificate. "This is going on my resume." "Our resumes." "Right. Our resumes." They left the engineering building together, heading toward the Korean barbecue place, and if their joined hands drew looks, neither of them cared anymore. The campus had eventually moved on to other gossip, other dramas. Some people still whispered. Some people still had opinions. But Sage and Jiwoo had learned to exist in their own world, the one where wheelchair repairs led to coffee shop debates, where arguments about actuators became collaborative projects, where a moment of kindness in a courtyard could transform into something neither of them had been looking for, but both were grateful to find. "Hey," Jiwoo said as they walked through campus. "Thank you." "For what?" "For taking a chance. On me. On us. On letting me in even when it was scary." Sage squeezed his hand. "Thank you for making it worth it. For being exactly who you are. For not performing." "Always," Jiwoo promised. "No performance, just us." "Just us," Sage agreed. And really, that was more than enough. So there you have it. Proof that sometimes the best love stories start with broken equipment and end with broken expectations. If this story spoke to you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that real connection doesn't care about wheelchairs or campus politics or social media drama. It just cares about 2 people brave enough to be real with each other. Until next time, remember, the right person will carry you when you need it and challenge you when you don't. That's the kind of love worth waiting for. Don't forget to tell us where you are watching from in the comment below.